Hello everyone, welcome to GameTechUK. We're here at JCB World Headquarters to try out the brand new JCB DLC for Construction Simulator. So let's get on with today's video. Our day started at the impressively large JCB headquarters in Uttoxeter, where we were taken straight to the cinema presentation room. In fact, this is at the stage where they actually do some of their presentations for their latest models, and we were shown the welcome video. As corporate videos goes, this was actually really interesting and gave you a lot of insight behind the history of the company. Then we was on to a favourite part of the day for me, and that was the JCB Museum. And if you like construction equipment, or indeed any equipment at all, this very quickly becomes quite an exciting place, and it really does show the whole history of where it started. Even as you walk in, 28 Derby Road is a replica of where JCB started, not far down the road from the headquarters, to everything we have here, all laid out beautifully in front of us. Myself and Squirrel, and on the left we've got Carlston, who's the community manager at Astragon. We spent a lot of time talking to Sam, who's the brand manager at JCB, who was always on hand just to give us information and a real insight and a background to everything we saw in the museum. And of course, I was hugely envious of this fantastic collection of JCB models. We was told by Sam that at first in the museum they wanted to put a real life excavator on display there, but unfortunately it was too heavy a load for the ceilings, so instead they commissioned this fantastic wireframe model. It wouldn't be me without a little bit of messing around, but in all seriousness, Sam was always on hand to have quite deep conversations about the strengths of the brand, the weaknesses of the brand, where it excels, where it still needs to work, and it was really great just to have an open conversation with the people behind a brand. Then it was on to the serious business of the day, and that was gaming and trying out the actual JCB DLC for, of course, Construction Simulator. The idea behind the event was to get us to come along and play the DLC in front of the real-life operators for those machines. And then role reversal, those operators would then try the game and see how they got on controlling their machines, and later on in the video you'll see how we got on controlling the real machines. Of course, I put my hand up to volunteer to go first, and it was a little bit nerve-wracking to start with, playing the game in front of all the JCB staff. But once I relaxed, got into my groove, then I could enjoy trying out the new machines. Then it was over to Georgina, who initially had problems with the control system, but once she swapped it over to the ISO setting that's built into the game, which corresponds and mirrors a lot more realistically with the real machine, she was absolutely fine. So we've got Georgina here, who's one of the operators, and as you just saw, she's just had a go on, obviously, the game, Construction Simulator. How does it all compare now?
Yeah, shamefully. I genuinely thought I'd be a bit better than that, actually. Yeah, it definitely was not. I actually changed how I held the controls.
Yeah.
And held it like little tiny
Was it down
joysticks.
to the controller?
Yeah, actually sort of helped me a little bit.
Yeah.
But definitely, like, I'm used to having a lot of power in the dipper of the excavator, whereas it seemed to be like maybe like the boom had a bit more power, so I was struggling to get it as neat as I wanted it to be. But you know,
but it was once you it's going to be the same for me when we try the real vehicles. Once you get associated with what the actual controls do, that's half the battle.
I don't want to speak too soon, but I think you'll pick up the real machine quicker than I was.
That would be interesting.
Picking up that there.
Yeah, that would be interesting.
I think you'll find it easier in the real thing than I have done on that.
But did that feel in any way associated with how the real vehicle feels?
Yeah, so when I switched the controls to that ISO pattern, that made so much more sense to me.
Okay.
Because it seemed silly that on the joystick before, on the joystick it was like up was up and down was down, which makes sense to a gamer.
Yeah.
Whereas in my head, I'm sat back in my seat, I've got my hands on the joysticks, and in that sense, up it's different. towards you is up
Yeah.
and forward is down. So that completely threw me off.
Yeah.
But once I switched that pattern
It was
over,
fine, wasn't it?
held my little joystick.
Yeah, just
Imagine
like
myself sat in that seat. So we got there.
You see, if you had proper controls that were based on the real
Yes.
vehicle, you'd get it instant.
That would be
wouldn't you?
ideal, yeah.
So that is the good thing about the game. If you had those controls
Yeah.
and they did what they did in real world,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
You-
once you switched over to that ISO pattern.
yeah, you'd be able to transfer
Yeah.
that skill immediately, wouldn't you?
And then, yeah, that would be my weekends taken up.
Then it was Paul's turn from Squirrel TV, and whilst we were all playing, JCB were also filming for their own promotional videos. So we've got Sam here, who's the licensing manager here at JCB, and we were having a little chat earlier, and it was quite interesting about how JCB is seeing the sort of value of coming into video games.
Yeah.
Tell me more about that.
Yeah, so I suppose our little team in licensing, we extend the brand out there on physical products, so toys, tools, batteries, all sorts of different things. But the digital gaming world is always something we saw on the horizon. We saw a few other of our competitors into that area. And I think after we got over the initial caution of kind of shouldn't we?
Yeah.
She'd been in a farming simulator for a good number of years,
Yes.
and that's, with that the amount of gamers around the world, you just can't ignore it. And
No.
I think to have our brand in that game is fantastic. People are talking about it. People are, influencers like yourself are kind of, spreading the word,
Yeah, exactly,
using the brand. So construction simulator, we knew that was always an obvious one as a construction brand. So
I mean, now that JCB is in construction simulator, you sort of look back and think, wow, there was a JCB hole in this game.
there was, and I think, because we've been in lots of discussions, and I think just commercially, we need to work out an agreement. But I think we always knew at some stage, look, do we do it at the start or do we do it as a DLC? And I think the timing is great for us.
Yeah,
I
it's
think,
perfect.
yeah. So,
And how hard is that process? So that initial conversation takes place. How hard is it that from that point to get the game to what we've seen today and played?
It's interesting. It depends how hard the negotiation is sometimes. But I mean, I think over the negotiation is not too difficult. I think it's just gathering all that kind of information.
Yeah.
Which is kind of sometimes that's easy, sometimes that's hard. It depends
on what you give them. I suppose,
yeah, exactly. And I think, but we've found this process relatively straightforward. And I think it plays to their strength. They know this world.
Yeah.
So actually, for us, it's been relatively straightforward. Just takes time, like anything in licensing, from signing a legal contract to the final sort of product launch.
And did you have to change much? Did they bring the product to you and you go, I don't really like it?
Not really, no, because I think the CAD, the key to it is
It's down to
good CAD.
Yeah,
if the CAD's good, there's always a bit of kind of, look, you tweak the lights here and stuff like that. But generally speaking, there's not been huge amounts of reworking. It's been quite smooth, and we found that again on other stuff we're doing, and we're keen to do a lot more.
After a lovely lunch with the JCB staff, excitement levels were building as we got a glimpse of one of many of their demonstration quarries, and this is where we were going to get the chance to get our hands on the real machine and see how we fared in comparison to the real operators when they tried the game. First up is the Excavator 220, which is included in the JCB DLC, and a briefing from Matt.
Right, Jason, this is your dead man.
Yep.
So when that, obviously the revs kick up, I've got it set, I've just dropped it down a little bit.
Yep.
Now basically, boom, dipper, now I can use my fingers and that's where it's different in the game.
Yep.
Bucket, left and right, similar to what was on there.
Yeah, that's exactly the same.
Now the slew is this.
Yep.
Right,
Okay.
now if I push these levers forward, gently,
Yep.
she'll move. See?
Okay.
So it's the opposite way around.
How do you move it forward then?
To forward, and what I've got with my toes on here. So
Okay, yeah.
put your seatbelt on for me.
Where's that?
It's there, that side, your lap belt.
Oh, lap belt,
And
yeah.
I'll put your seat on, don't tell everybody. Right, I'll leave the door open.
Yep.
So, when you're ready, dead man. So dead man first.
Oh, yep.
Up, that's it, now you lie.
Lovely. The 220 was an absolute joy to control, and you can see from the weather down in the quarry, it was windy, it was wet, it was very, very cold. But inside the cab, it's got one of the most hottest heated seats I've ever experienced, and I should imagine with the door shut and a bit of music on, this could be quite a nice experience. But I really do think that I got the controls quite quickly in the machine. Some of that was down to how intuitive the actual machine is, and I think a lot of it was down to the fact that I've played Construction Simulator for so many hours. It's given me an idea of what to expect when I do actually sit in a machine like this. Oh, there's a huge rock in there to pick up. Cool. Go. Yes. But all too soon it was over. That was the end of my go in the 220, and a huge thank you to Matt for his direction. Then it was my turn to be under the direction of Georgina in the JCB backhoe. Now this is a very, very versatile machine, and after a brief demonstration of what it can actually do with Georgina, I was able to get in and feel for myself exactly how cool this machine is. Similar to the 220, the backhoe was very intuitive and easy to get to grips with. Of course, the technique would come from training and years of experience, but to get the basic controls was surprisingly easy. Georgina then showed me a couple of additions that this particular JCB has got. The first being an extended boom. This really does extend the radius around the front of the machine for you to load and unload. The next was the sliding front arm. Again, this is a great feature and it saves you having to move the main body of the JCB left and right. You can just move the arm instead. Then we took the vehicle for a drive around the quarry, and it's funny to think that these are fully road legal, even though they are absolutely huge. You can take these on the highway. They're very comfortable. The seat's got the air compression, so it's a very smooth drive, and the turning circle is extremely tight. Then it was time to use the front bucket. Now this is one job I don't think you can fake it on. There's a lot of skill here involved. Not only are you controlling the bucket and the angle of the bucket, but you're also controlling the actual JCB, running with enough accelerator to be able to control it on the brake, making sure that you're not wheel spinning, as I do here, because obviously you don't want to churn up the terrain on site. I did my best. All too soon, the time in the backhoe was over, the weather was taking a terrible turn for the worse, and it was time to leave the quarry. Before we left, they did let my lovely wife, Mrs. GameTech, have a drive around in the backhoe, and I must thank her for doing all the filming for me. So that is it everyone, we've come to the end of our day. The weather's turned a little bit, but it's been absolutely fantastic. JCB has really looked after us, and it's been great to get in these machines and actually see how real Construction Simulator actually feels. A massive thank you to JCB and of course Astrogon as well. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one.